This hour is brought to you by Sunrise Chevy.
I've listened to so much crap in the last 2 weeks.
Hey, buddy.
You know, you hear all that crap, but I understood that crap was going to come with the territory.
Hey, buddy.
But I'll live with the crap.
Buddy.
And I feel very good.
He's a disgruntled Scottish guard known for his lethal temper and his unusual eating habits. He weighs a metric ton. His name? Fat Bastard.
One of the things, Mike, that's been pointed out over the course of today and last night after the game is that you seemed resigned to the fate after the game, that there wasn't much fire in you, and you sort of stood up before the media and said, well, you know, this is the way it is. Are you resigned to this fate?
Well, you're the same guy that wrote about me when I did have the fire, that was the wrong thing to do. So who you crapping?
Well, I'm just asking.
Don't crap me now.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies. Tell me lies. That's all I.
Who Are You Crappin' brought to you by Sport Clips Haircuts with 70 Chicagoland locations to serve you. Sport Clips. It's good to be a guy, as always. I like to limit this to something someone said, not something someone did, and I promise you, if you're rambling, going too long.
And we also try to steer away from the primarily partisan political craps. Political craps are fine, but just not those of the obviously partisan variety. Joe in Plainfield is on the score.
Hey, guys.
Hey,
this
Joe.
Crap goes out to the once slightly above average wide receiver and full-time idiot, Chad Ochocinco Johnson. During a court hearing this week regarding a probation violation in a domestic violence case, Johnson slapped his lawyer on the butt in joy after the judge asked if Johnson was happy with the lawyer's work. The judge then gave him a 30-day sentence for the courtroom incident. In response, Chad said, quote, "My life is in shambles right now, and I try my best to laugh and keep a smile on my face. I'll keep it short, Chad, like your time on the outside. You will be spending many long years in solitary confinement if your idiocy and lifestyle continues. So keep your hands to yourself and ask, who you crapping?"
Thank you, Joe. Nick says this goes out to Rockford Register star writer Jay Taft. On Wednesday, he wrote about how the Rockford Ice Hogs have helped aid the Blackhawks in the current Stanley Cup playoff run. He notes that Corey Crawford was a longtime Ice Hogs goaltender and writes, "His rocky ride has peaked with a star-studded playoff run this year, and right now he has a butterfly leg up on winning this year's Vezina Trophy for the top goaltender." While it's true, Crawford's played very well in the playoffs, and even during the regular season, a quick look at the nominations for the Vezina Trophy show that the finalists are Henrik Lundqvist, Antti Niemi, and Sergei Bobrovsky. Jay, I don't know if you've taken one too many dips in the Rock River, but in order to win the Vezina Trophy, you have to be a finalist for the Vezina Trophy.
Not necessarily.
So, Jay Taft, who you crapping? It's Steve in Bolingbrook. He's on the score.
Hello, boys.
Hello.
This crap goes to Dr. Michael Baden. Who is that, you ask? He was the forensic expert in the O.J. Simpson double murder trial. He recently said that the neck slashing scene in the nerd equivalent of porn Game of Thrones wedding scene was inaccurate in terms of how the blood would splatter after the slitting of a throat. Okay, Dr. Baden, O.J. Simpson trial forensic expert, you say the blood wouldn't spray that way? Please tell us how it would. After all, you're the expert who helped not convict the most obvious murderer in the history of murder. Dr. Baden, who are you crapping?
Here's one from Glenn who says, the Boers and Bernstein show isn't always just odd sports thoughts and penis jokes. For example, I recently learned from them that Perez Hilton of the Social Security set Terry Boers about the Twitter feud going on between Katy Perry and Chief Keef.
Mm-hmm.
It seems Katy Perry's pristine sensibilities were offended by Chief Keef's song, I Hate Being Sober. As she stated, that song caused her, quote, to have serious doubt for the world.
Yes,
she
it did.
later clarified that her remark was only about the song's subject matter, tweeting, quote, I was really just having a general opinion on our generation's desire to be constantly intoxicated. Well, Katie, are you really unaware of where such a desire comes from? Here are the lyrics to the first stanza of your song, Last Friday Night. There's a stranger in my bed. There's a pounding in my head. Glitter all over the room.
Inside your head.
Pink flamingos in the pool. I smell like a mini bar. DJ's passed out in the yard. Barbie's on the barbecue. This a hickey or a bruise? Your song goes on in the same vein for several more stanzas, finally ending with the following: this Friday night, do it all again. So, after glorifying drunken debauchery for fame and profit, you're truly wondering why young people might want to mimic that behavior? That's a bit like Captain Renault being shocked to find out that gambling is going on at Rick's Cafe Americain. Katy Perry, who you crappin'?
Well, and she's like doing two guys.
What?
I mean, she's dating John Mayer, and she's also doing a little something. Is that Robert Pattinson?
I don't know.
The Twilight guy?
Yeah.
That's another one. I mean, right now.
Like at the moment?
Yes, everybody knows about it. She's doing both of them, and yet she's questioning somebody else's lifestyle? Look, I don't care what you do. Fine, go do everybody. I don't care.
I believe Katy Perry also doing Gary from Evanston, who's next on the score.
Who isn't?
No.
Who isn't?
Hi, guys. My greatest sports experience was meeting Youppi at Olympic Stadium in 1999.
Who cares?
And next year at this time, Youppi will be holding the Stanley Cup at the Canadiens' victory parade in Montreal. Anyway, on his Booyah First State show Tuesday morning, a deliriously happy Skip Bayless very predictably bragged that Bill Belichick had acquired Tim Tebow to be a quarterback, and that Tebow would, quote, sooner than later replace Ryan Mallett as a backup to Tom Brady, and eventually might even be the starting quarterback for Bill Belichick. Now, I believe that Bayless is totally sincere about all this, which instead of making Skip a phony, merely makes him a moron, just like his great hero Tim Tebow. Skip Bayless, who are you crapping?
He's a treat, isn't he?
He really, I love him.
Our buddy Scott in Davenport says, while listening to Pat and Keith call Monday's Cubs-Reds game and eager to get to my destination to see the fog they were describing, Pat said this when Reds pitcher Homer Bailey singled to lead off the third. I don't know why it is that when the pitcher leads off and gets on base, he usually scores. Well, three things. One, since 2009 through Sunday's games, when pitchers lead off an inning and reach first, hit, walk, hit by pitch, reach on error, they score 36% of the time. Position players reaching first score 37% of the time. So the more accurate statement is when the leadoff batter of an inning reaches first, he has a 37% chance of scoring. Two, he left aside the extremely pertinent fact that pitchers only reach first as a leadoff hitter 16% of the time versus position players 27%. And the kicker, Bailey scored on Brandon Phillips's grand slam home run. I don't need to consult the play-by-play data to know that 100% of base runners score when a grand slam is hit. Pat, I loved your call, but in this case, you made a statement lacking in fact. So, Pat Hughes, who you crapping?
See, you can't. You just can't make those statements when you know he's listening. You just can't.
Look who's out. Napoleon Dynamite is on the score.
Oh, my God.
Hey, Terry, will you be playing as my doubles partner in the Tetherball World Championship this year?
You bet I will.
I'd ask Dan, but he's kind of a... Anyway, speaking of...
Not kind of.
Right. Earlier today, when describing Shep, Dan said, what is he, a Sith, where there can be only one? Well, Dan, if you had paid attention to Mace Windu and Master Yoda in Phantom Menace, you would remember that with the Sith there are always two, a master and an apprentice. Perhaps you were thinking of Highlander, which most people don't know was actually a documentary where the events happened in real time. So, Dan, you mustachioed gay weirdo, who you crapping K-Bye?
What the heck are you even talking about?
What? I mean, you're some of that's true. There's some truth in there somewhere. We are in the midst of Who You Crappin'. We always invite you to y'all butt in. Still plenty of time for you. 312-644-6767. Come out and play. Who You Crappin'? Chicago Sports Radio 6-7 in the score. Boers and Bernstein. We are in the midst of Who You Crappin', Chicago Sports Radio 6-7 in the score. And as always on Boers and Bernstein, we are looking for the big finish, which is not to be confused with the list of finished goaltenders.
We do have a line open at 312-644-6767. This was sent in by Tinky Winky, and it goes out to switch-hitting bigot Chipper Jones. Chipper tried to tweet a joke about keeping illegal immigrants out of America by filling the Rio Grande with alligators. Obviously, Chipper hasn't been spending his retirement watching Animal Planet. You see, Chipper, Mexico, along with all of Central and South America, has various forms of crocodiles in their waters. It may not be the bad matchup you were looking for in Border Patrol. Also not helping much, the environment. No crocs, no gators in the Rio Grande because in many places it's desert. No agua. And the lack of water is one of the reasons the Rio Grande itself is not helping with illegal border crossings. Egypt needs the Nile River to sustain their croc population, but why stop at reptiles, Chipper? Why not sharks? Sharks are scary. Piranha, barracuda, that one parasite fish that swims up your pee-pee and needs to be surgically removed. That would scare me from crossing. Or dragons. Why not dragons? Chipper Jones, who you crapping?
He ought to consider leaving Twitter.
Oh, I think he consider leaving the planet. Mm-hmm. Be fine, too. Yeah. Maddox, boy, you're on the score.
I love Tinky Winky.
White physicist.
Since
always good to hear from you, buddy.
Since Cubs radio guy Pat Hughes was crapped earlier in this segment, I think it's only fair to give equal time to his TV counterpart, Len Casper, who said earlier on the Mully and Hanley morning extravaganza that the current NHL Stanley Cup final makes him really long for the day when MLB can go back to doing away with interleague play. It's a noble sentiment, Len, except that MLB just moved Houston from the National League to the American League, assuring that there must be an interleague game every single day. Len Casper, who are you crapping?
He pulls balls that other guys can't pull.
Beard of Bees says this goes out to Steve Rosenblum.
Uh-oh.
He's actually here.
Maven.
He's here. Who, over the weekend, spent a segment hammering the recent coverage of the Hawks and the Red Wings and the inability of announcers to pronounce names correctly, especially when the easiest Hawk name of all, Nicholas Hjalmarsson, where the H is silent. A few minutes later, Rosie was in the middle of an ominous diatribe of how the big uglies on Boston can shut down the Hawks, especially the Bruins' Milan Lucic. Mulan? I'm not sure if the Bruins recently drafted a Disney princess, but if you're referring to the Bruins' better version of Brian Bickle, that would be Milan Lucic. Steve Rosenblum. Ooh, you crappin'.
Uh-oh. Hockey man. Long-time hockey man.
This is from Alex Snellius in Loving Memory of Ursula, and he adds parenthetically, and members of Ursula. I didn't say I understood it either. Mac and Speegs were handing out game pucks in the afterglow of last night's epic Hawks victory. Someone suggested the United Center sound man deserved recognition for his outstanding selection of late-night deep cuts. Daniel's discerning musical palette wouldn't allow this praise to pass without critique. You know what, McNeil said? Here's some constructive criticism for the sound at United Center. Too much 70s. 5 minutes earlier, Dan unsuccessfully attempted to join a conversation about the band The Replacements by using a Led Zeppelin analogy. What specific 70s music has you riled up, Dan? Foreigner's Jukebox Hero, McNeil scoffed. Do we really need to hear that? The 12 o'clock hour opened with REO Speedwagon's Riding the Storm Out, featuring Daniel on supporting vocals toward the end of the song. This was followed by his enthusiastic review of the 1977 REO Speedwagon live album You Get What You Play For, then an in-depth examination of early Speedwagon before they got all commercialized. In other news, Daniel thinks that last week's Friday Funk segment was pretty good, but it featured too many parody songs for his taste. And McNeil, who you crapping?
I got $20 in my pocket.
Mr. Pouty Pants is on the score.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Hello.
On Monday, Dan decided to sign Terry up for FarmersOnly.com. Dan became upset when Terry's results were full of women in the suburbs who are not farmers. First of all, you entered the score's downtown zip code as your location. The only quote-unquote farmers you're going to find living and working the land within the city limits of Chicago are people growing marijuana or playing Farmville on Facebook. I know you were just doing a bit, but let's not forget the obvious hypocrisy of you getting upset about a bunch of suburban wannabes on FarmersOnly.com when you just created a profile for a man who lives in the suburb and works in the third largest city in the country. and is, in fact, not a farmer. Dan Bernstein, Who You Crappin'.
Mr. Pouty Pants.
As far as you know. As far as you know.
Hefe in Roswell, Georgia says this goes out to the concert advertising campaign for Gordon Sumner, also known as Sting. And another summer of aging rock stars going on the road for a money grab. Radio advertisements have been promoting Sting's Back to Base tour, saying Sting will be singing all his hits in a stripped-down band of 5 members. Okay, well, a stripped definition, as everyone knows from visiting a gentleman's club, hi, Uncle Terry, means to remove or take away items or parts. Stripped is used in the wrong context here because Sting originally sung all his hits in a band that consisted of 3 members.
Oh.
You can't strip anything from a 3-member band and then end up with 5 members of the band. So to the advertising gurus for Sting's concert tour, who you crappin'?
And here to sing a romantic ballad is the one and only Sting.
Fields of gold.
Mike says this goes out to San Antonio Spurs bench warmer and former NBA superstar Tracy McGrady. On Wednesday, he told reporters he's been acting as LeBron James at Spurs practices to help prepare Spurs players for guarding him in actual games. McGrady told reporters he's been serving in his LeBron role for some time and was, quote, just simulating a little bit of what LeBron does on the basketball court. Like what? Wearing a headband? Being tall? Throwing chalk in the air? Unless McGrady's discovered a time machine that magically sends the Spurs back to 2002, I'm struggling to see what he means. What is it that McGrady can do on a basketball court like James? And if he could do it, wouldn't the genius that is Greg Popovich find some way to actually get him on the floor? Maybe the NBA only has room for one guy with the talents of James, and that's why McGrady spent most of the season playing in China. Maybe it's more of McGrady saying things that don't make sense to reporters, but until the Spurs win a third game and McGrady tells reporters how great it is to finally win a title, I ask, Tracy McGrady, who you crappin'? And yet another for Dial here.
Oh, no.
From Michigan Avenue Phil says, goes out to Big Chief Mackhawk before the Storm Apocalypse Derecho 2013. On the non-video streaming, now video streaming Mac and Speak show, Danny proclaimed this, I'm going to have to get home early to start building an ark before Diego starts up. Hold on a second, Mac Attack. You don't need an ark. You know why? Because you have a brand new boat at home. How do I know? Because you've been telling us, along with going through the hassle of buying it from Bass Pro Shops and the hassle of them fixing the ignition for free, the hassle of being forced to buy new fishing equipment while there, and then being held hostage to the Stanley Cup Finals schedule to go fishing. What's next? You gotta drag your rear end half a mile to the UC to see a Stanley Cup Game 5 clincher? Dial, you poor, tortured soul. Who you crappin', Tackett?
The great Dr. James Andrews was inside you.
Now it is time to check your manometer.
That's outstanding. Oh, my manometer is ready to burst, and I had to stay close to home. You know that. Too many storms.
Man City.
No, not
I don't know. Maybe
close
it's maybe it's
Mankina.
Mantino.
Mankina. Manhattan.
Mr. Mouth will bear the pressure, and we'll close out who you crapping on the score.
This mercifully short crap is for newly shorn and normally shockingly tolerable Booyah analyst Barry Melrose. Molitor himself said after last night's injury to Nathan Horton that it would probably cost the Bruins 2 to 3 goals that game. There's only one problem with that analysis, Barry. Horton was injured in overtime when it is not possible to score more than 1 goal ever. Barry, love your suit. What were you crapping?
Mr. Mouth, Mr. Mouth.
You make us wonder with the things you say. Maybe you were having an off day. You must have thought that we were napping.
Ow.
Buddy, who you crapping?